Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. This week's EVE Talk will not be a live stream. One of the comments that I received during the last EVE Talk, which I did do live, rang very true to me. I thought it over a little bit, and the fact that the comments posted during the live stream don't show up as comments anymore will make EVE Talk quite a bit more confusing for people that watch afterwards. I said at that time, I thought, well, maybe if I do the first part of EVE Talk as I always do it, and then after that try and take some suggestions, that it would work out. But honestly, it's something that diminishes EVE Talk on both sides. So if I don't do it live, you get a smooth experience. You can just watch EVE Talk in like half an hour and then you're done. But if I do it live, but I don't take requests during like the first half hour or even 40 minutes, but I do say hello now and then, it's just not as interactive as a live stream should be. So what I'm working on right now is I'm gonna do EVE Talk recorded just as I always do, but I'm now thinking and working on maybe trying to get a weekly live stream up. I still have to work on the concept and all of that. It's still very early thinking, but that's the route I'm going with the possibility of YouTube live streaming. That's now really just one press of the button. All I'd have to do is go to another OBS profile, press one button, and I'd be live. So I'm working on it, but I think the best way to keep EVE Talk is just a straight up EVE Talk of me taking a look at the market. And then we're gonna do that right now, of course, because that's why all of you are here. But just before I do that, I do want to thank everyone that commented on the EVE Online, the State of the Game video. There were quite a lot of responses. I got a lot of feedback and some very interesting angles that I had not considered yet. What also surprised me just a little bit was how many people actually considered another MMO as their second game. It was way more than I thought would be. So yeah, thank you very much for all of the comments there. So let's get on with the EVE Talk for this week. First of all, plex, and that's gonna be 215. Plex are down just a little bit, but as you can see, they don't want to break the 20-day moving average, so they're already back up to 1.05 billion. It was just a very steep increase right there, just breaking straight through the 1 billion, straight to the 1.05 billion, and then up to a very high point all of a sudden. So it's a normal correction, but it doesn't mean that the increase in price for plex has stalled just yet. So we're currently at 1.070 billion for the sellers, 1.060 billion for the buyers. A 10 million margin is actually pretty small. It does mean that the demand is there. People are still willing to buy plexes for more than $1 billion at the moment. I sort of hope that a lot of this is speculation, unlike a winter patch, maybe a Citadel patch, something like that, where we'll actually see quite a bit of dumping all of a sudden, people trying to take profits, maybe to go and try and eke out profit from trades on plexes so that they can fund their Excel citadels when those come out. Some stuff like that is possible, I think. But yeah, plex above $1 billion. I'm curious to see how long it's gonna stay, and they're still clearly on an uptrend. I also wonder how long that is going to keep up. The multiple pilot trading certificates, moving in tandem with that, you can see the very same spike up here to 1.1 billion, then a bit of a correction, but we're already on our way back up, unfortunately. Pilot's body resculpt finally showing a sign that it is at least somewhat linked to plex, here taking a really big spike up from 220 million up to what are the sellers at now. Yeah, almost 300 million for a pilot's body resculpt certificate. So I guess people finally plugged that gap. I'm pretty sure that there's actually a big link between actual plex and the body resculpt certificate, about how you create those, and so now they saw the really big margin that you could actually get on those from the higher prices from plex. So there is some correlation, but it's a little bit of a weird market, a niche market as well. If you look at the volumes, they're very, very low. Next up, let's take a look at some minerals then, and that will be 445. First of all, we'll start with titanium, which is up a little bit more. Honestly, I think this is pretty good for industry and for high-sec miners in general, because they're getting a bit more bang for their buck at the moment, and it doesn't look like titanium is stopping just yet. The margin between the 20-day moving average and the 5-day moving average is staying pretty healthy, and the sellers are up to 555, 556, something like that. The buyers 541. Margin is increasing just a little bit. We used to have extremely thin margins on titanium, so that could be a sign that the increase in prices, if not slowing down, going to end at some point. But yeah, about 5.5 ISK for titanium. We've been way lower than that. As you can see right here, we've been close to the 5.10 as well, and probably a little bit below that at some points too. So this is good for high-sec miners. You're getting a little bit more ISK for the time you spend mining titanium. Supply demand, I think that this still looks pretty healthy here. You've got 50 million, 30 million units being bought, and then down below here we've got 3 billion units that are being bought for 5.3. That's obviously going to help keep the price at a reasonable level. On the seller side here, 40, 30, 40, 235, 52. I'd say on the short term I'd give a slight edge to supply, meaning that there's going to be a bit of pressure on the increase in price, but there is really no sign that it's going to crash back down or anything like that. So let's take a look at pyrite next here. Very similar chart. Good to see that this seems to be moving across all of the high-sec minerals in general. So pyrite up a little bit as well. The current selling price is 11.53, the buying price 11.43. Very small margin, even smaller than titanium. As you can see, people are definitely following suit. I think that means that pyrite still has some room to go even higher at the moment because of the small margin, because the buyers are willing to increase their price in tandem. And as a result, buyers, let me see here, well, there's still a few recent buy orders here, 36 million, 28 million, 12 million right here. On the sellers though, look at the bigger numbers, but they're longer ago though, 194, 522, 221. So there is an edge on demand, but it's only right now. It's because there's really been no recent supply in very big numbers. That could be plugged at any time. So that is one thing. Looking at the numbers here, I do think pyrite still has a bit of leg. The increase in price could still go higher, but once people notice that, come in with supply, this is going to be squashed pretty quickly, and there could be a bit of a counter movement in the pyrite market because of the very low supply that we see at the moment, which is clearly causing the increase in price, because the 5-day moving average is going up quite a bit faster than the 20-day moving average. So a bit of volatility is in the cards here as well in pyrite, I think. Next up, the Mixalon chart. Let's take a look at that. Again, very similar. It's good to see that they're managing to maintain their increase in price. We're not going to go up to the point we were 6 months ago just yet, but 52 ISK for Mixalon seems to be where we're heading. 52.63 for the sellers, 51.24 for buyers. Again, very small margin. Supply numbers here look pretty healthy. 100 million here, 10 million, 20 million here, and then on the demand side you've got 46.17 right here. So again, a slight edge for supply, probably because of the higher prices, but maybe it has enough momentum and there's no sign that this is actually going to crash back down or anything like that at any point soon. I'm reading this as preparations. People are preparing for the big mineral dump, big mineral sink that's going to come with the citadels, I think. At least the initial one, when you produce them first, until the market stabilizes. Here is Isogen once again, the very similar chart, bottoming out below 100. Now we're back up to 115, where, well, the market is hesitating a little bit. Of course, you did have this double spike right here, going up to 115, then almost up to 120. We're probably seeing a bit of oversupply because of that, but that seems to have been covered by the market by now, because we have declined a bit. So you can see here 2.7 million coming in, another 8.5 million coming in, but that's a little bit older, and around that you've got some fresher orders of 2 million, half a million, something like that. On the other hand, the buyers are coming back to the market now, right here with 10 million, another 1.2 million. So decently good situation, but I think that this decline will actually stop at some point, and maybe we'll go back up a little bit because of the pressure of the other high-sec minerals. Next up, Noxium, the in-between one. Yeah, that one is not doing as hot. It was trying to go up a little bit as well, but you can clearly see that it's declining back, and it's nowhere near the price point of 6 months ago. So most of the other high-sec minerals seem to have made up like almost 50% of the losses that they incurred here, but Noxium is nowhere near that. And we're currently looking at, let me see here, 495 for Noxium, very low price in my opinion, 480 for the buyers as well. I think that's gonna be my next Jita trip, just pick up a little bit more Noxium now that it's back on its way down. At some point this is going to come back, it just pretty much has to in my opinion, considering where all the other charts are at the moment. Noxium seems, to me at least, to be in a very, very low spot. Next up, the null-seq ones then, we've got Zydrine, which after a bit of hesitation last week, the correction seems to be coming back. Let's see where the sells are at, 1139, 1140, something like that. And still we see half a page with 143 million units of Zydrine being dumped on the market. Look at the numbers in demand here, 7 million, 1 million, 1 million. So yeah, there is clearly oversupply for some reason in the null-seq minerals, and the decline in price seems to have quite a bit of legs behind it, because they're doing quite well, which in my opinion is pretty good. Here again we see Megasite as well. Maybe it dropped down a little bit too fast. What I noticed was that Megasite was pretty much coming in the same price range as Zydrine, and that's not normal. So it moved back up, but again we are declining here once again over the last week or so. Let's take a look at some supply here. 1.4 million, a million being dumped here, 2 million still here. So I think that the decline still has some room for the null-seq minerals. At what point is it going to bottom out or stop? That's hard to say, because as I've said, considering that the high-sec minerals are making up ground at like probably 30 to 50% of the previous price 6 months ago, if the null-seq ones decline towards that, you know, that's maybe an analysis you could make. But considering that a lot of people are probably buying high-sec minerals to prepare for the new structures, the same thing could happen to the null-seq minerals as well, of course, at some point, and so they could be going back up at any time, in my opinion, because of that analysis. And then finally, quick touch on Morphite, but that one is staying pretty stably between the 12,000 and 30,000 ISK price mark. Supply demand wise, let's take a look here, 60,000, 80,000, another a few thousand here. Demand 43,000, 20,000 here. So that seems really stable, a well-supplied market that is basically doing its own thing a little bit. All right, let's take a look at Tech One chips next. 1255 for that one. And yeah, I didn't delete anything in the Tech One mark. So we're just gonna go straight through them. Here you can see the Armageddon that is settling at a higher price than what we had 6 months ago, but now it does seem like we are in a more stable period for the Armageddon, between 195 and 200 million. This might look like a very big increase or something like that on the chart, but it's actually from 175 to 195, less than 10%. Is that right? No, it's actually a bit more than 10% increase in price, but that is over like 3-4 months because of the mineral rebalance. It's not something that is like a trend or really something that's that special. We can see here though in the last few months, Armageddon pretty stable, although at a slightly higher price. Here's the Caracal then, still showing that volatility after the price spike of last week. You can see we're correcting back. That's going to be due to big supply coming in. As you can see here, 370, 18, 25, 10, 15. Oops, I'm gonna have to click back on price here. So there is a lot of supply. There is a lot of demand for Caracal as well, but it's very hectic. All of a sudden, an airline comes in, buys a big fleet of that, moves them out and uses them. If they lose them, they'll come right back and you'll get a new spike very soon. If not, oversupply could actually cause a big decrease in price. And at the moment, we are actually at 10.8 million, which is right around here on the chart. So the Caracals are coming back towards a normal price range that we had 6 months ago. Could be something to keep an eye on, where the bouncing of the chart is going to start to happen around. Next up, the Dominics here, very stable at around 195 to 200 million. New bit of a high period right here, a bit of a low period here. We're right back on the average. So that's actually good news, I think. I do like to see a stable Take One market, so you know exactly what you're up against when it comes to producing stuff like that, or buying and losing Take One chips. I think it's just healthy for the game to have a strong foundation like that with Take One chips. And as you can see here, supply demand 219112, so that's pretty healthy. There's still quite a bit coming in. There's also quite a few, in fact it's pretty much this entire front page here for the buyers are new orders as well. So very healthy market with a very stable price, good demand, good supply, something where if you have like a perfect blueprint original, you can actually make decent money off of this, I think. Next up, the Drake here, knew a little bit of a spike, but as expected that was plucked pretty quickly when they could sell Drakes for almost 58 million. So this went down to 52. Now we're back up a little bit, of course, maybe a slight overcorrection, yeah, this is what caused the problem, of course. Look at that, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, all of these still staying right there. And then if we go back down here again, starting at 61 million, I get 34, 38, 10, 24 here again. So that's all of this sell order competition, all of this industrial potential that saw the opportunity of the Drake. Thus, yeah, we have this oversupply now, maybe even a little bit too much. So we drop down to 52. I'd say 54, 55 as an average Drake price is something that seems to be in the cards considering the charts. Maybe just below 54 million or something like that. But in general, despite the fact that we went up from 48 to 54 million, this was over 6 months, and in general the Drake stayed pretty stable. It could be that the new missile related modules that have been added to the game made the Drake just slightly more popular. After all of the nerfs, it was actually a very cheap ship for a battle cruiser. Next up here we've got the Mauler, again showing a little bit of volatility a while ago, but here very stable, pretty good for a Take One market. 11 million for a Mauler, that's the price you're paying for these. Next up here the Myrmidon, showing signs of volatility. But that is exactly what the Take One market should do. If something drastic happens and the price goes up very quickly, it also corrects very quickly again, because people see that opportunity, bring Myrmidons to the market, and then it drops back down towards its average, sometimes even a little bit lower than that. But in general, 53 million for a Myrmidon, and pretty stable around that price point at any time, even despite these spikes, except maybe for 1 or 2 days. You could have picked up a Myrmidon for 53 million, no problem. Next up, the Oracle. That's a little bit more in line with the Armageddon, because it's a tier 3 battlecruiser. I think some of them and some big ships just use more Zydrine and Megasite, and as a result they are settling or trying to find their price at a much higher point than 6 months ago. And so for the Oracle, it seems to be above 80 million at the moment, which is actually pretty expensive for a tier 3 battlecruiser. The Oracle, I think, also has its use against Entosis frigates, because it's a decently good sniping platform. So I actually think that could be a reason why it's actually a little bit higher at the moment. There could just be more demand for Oracles in nullsec because of the new Entosis system. Next up, the Raven, showing a very nice chart that starts at 180 and it ends at 182 million. So again, very stable, a few spikes, but again here, I guess what happened here is a little bit of oversupply causing the price to drop as low as 174 million. Then people said, okay, I'm not making Ravens anymore, so the price went way back up to 192. There they said, all right, time to dump our stocks again. But in general, the price tends to be very stable across the board. Next up, the Stabber, some volatility first 3 months, here extremely stable at 10.6 million for a standard cruiser Minmatar, pretty much normal price. Next up, the Tornado, showing that pattern here once again, a little bit of a move up here, maybe some preparation for nullsec fleets. The Tornado is also a very good ganking ship, so be careful. Did someone decide to make some Tornado fleets for high sec ganking? something like that is always possible as well. There are several groups like Code and the Imperium that do this from time to time, and so this increase in price could have something to do with that. If we look at supply, coming in 1.5, not that big of a move just yet on that, despite the fact that you can sell them close to 76 million. We'll have to see if this is actually, no, it doesn't look like it's due to that increase of a volume. So let's keep an eye on the tornado. It's kind of an out of bounds increase in price here, all of a sudden reaching a 6-month high of 76 million. There could be something more behind this. We'll have to keep an eye on it. Next up, the Typhoon here, starting 172, ending 176, but in general, as you can see, despite a little bit of volatility here and there, which is just normal market variation, it's not like it goes up to 200 or above 200 for a period of time or anything like that. This seems like a healthy situation once again. And here is the Vexor actually reaching a low point for the 6 months, but staying just below 11 million. That's still okay. We saw the other cruisers right around that price as well. So I'd say it's not any reason to panic. The Tech 1 market just seems pretty healthy to me at the moment. Next up, Tech 2. Let's take a look at some trade opportunities. 21 minutes for that one. Here is where I deleted a few of the assault frigates that were just way too stable to keep an eye on. Here's the Basilisk. This is what we do like to see, and then what you need to keep in mind here is, although this looks similar to the Tech 1 market, this goes from 175 up to 215 million all of a sudden, and then here 180 touching a bottom, price spike up to 230 million. We're talking much bigger percentage increases, we're talking much bigger profits to be made on this, and then look at the drop off here to 175 and another spike. This huge volatility is where you make a lot of money on shorter and medium term trades. This is why I like the Tech 2 market for some actual trade opportunities. Unfortunately, the Basilisk seemed to be settling here right in the middle, so I would not make a move on this one. Next up, the Cerberus. That shows a very interesting price spike here from 200 to 230 million, possibly due to the war that happened in Nullsec. Someone mentioned that Cerberus was one of the doctrines that was flown quite a lot, but it does look like industrial potential was high enough that this gap has been plugged already. So yeah, all of this is new supply. Look at that, people were ready to plug that. All of this is new supply. That's quite a lot, and so this is putting a lot of pressure on the price. You know, if you expect something like that to happen again, it could be a good idea to try and pick some up at like 193, 194, which is really right here on the chart. That's not so bad, but of course you have to maybe have a little bit of inside knowledge that there will be more Cerberus fleets that will be put on the line in like maybe another Nullsec move, something like that. Because otherwise the spikes were here, but I'd say a little bit dangerous to actually make big moves here. Here's the annual then, also had a pretty decent move up from 21 to 23 million, but that's actually pretty limited. Yeah, the assault frigates, volume wise, we're looking at around maybe 30-40 ships a day. Look at the amount that we have here. There's still really big sell orders of those, so I think it's very hard to actually go and make a move on assault frigates. That's just a personal opinion, but we'll keep an eye on them in the upcoming weeks. Here's the Guardian then, also being a little bit too stable for my taste here, just hovering around the 130. We saw a bottom of as low as 115, so I'd say just wait for this to actually go even lower, for the market to just slow down that much, that will go even lower. Maybe then you'll see an opportunity. You may miss one, but I honestly think it's risky to call the new bottom 130 just yet. And the move up here from 130 to 140 is just not big enough to make a good trade on. Here's the Hound, that's quite a bit better. The bottom seems to be around 16 million. Here we had a move up to 21 million, so you could have sold them last week. It's on its way back down, but again, look for that bottom of 16 million. The buy orders are 17.5. They're too high, but this Hound chart does show some potential here. Next up, we've got the Ishtar. I don't think that the Ishtar is just such a big doctrine ship that there's just so many of them being produced that we won't see that many spikes to it. It's really dependent on what CCP decides to do with the ship. As you can see, very small margin as well, 154 to 160 for the sellers. So I don't like the Ishtar for trading at the moment, just because it's such a ship that's flown so often. That means that there's robust production, robust demand. You need smaller ships where actual fleets of them are being lost. That has an impact on the market, and in the Ishtar it's very hard to do because it's just everywhere. The Manticore though, that's quite a little bit better. Look at that. It was below 24 million, then it spiked up to 32 million. Now it's back down once again. That's of course pretty normal. Nothing goes up in a straight line. Yeah, the trigger right here seemed to have been breaking 24. I'd like to buy them below 22 honestly, and then you're probably doing a good trade. They're just above that still, so I think wait out a little bit longer for the Manticore to drop just a touch lower and then try and pick some up below 22 million. I think you'll have an opportunity to sell with some profit. Next up, the Nemesis here. Stealth bombers, you know, when they're used well, they are very effective in nullsec, you know, bombing runs, all of that. But if you lose a whole fleet of it, that's generally what tends to happen. And so that's, I think, part of why this is so volatile. It's also something I think that may be slightly harder to produce than the assault frigates. For some reason anyways, the stealth bombers are doing a lot better when it comes to volatility. You can also see that their volume spikes are much higher. So there is a reason why stealth bombers do better, I think, than assault frigates. And here we saw the Nemesis drop as low as 18.5 million on some data points and then spike right back up to 21 million. That's pretty decent. You can do some trading on spikes like that. It's on its way back down, so your sell opportunity is over. In general, we're not finding a lot of good opportunities. Here again, the Oneros, okay, doing from 140 to 170, that's not bad. Back down to 135, that's not bad for a buy opportunity. But right now, we're just in the middle of that, so I'd say nope for the Oneros either. Purifier, again, sell order is as passed here. We're on our way back down. Finally here, the Scimitar. Again, I don't like this because we're right in the middle of a correction back down. And then finally, the Vengeance is on a high point. So if you have Vengeances, this is an assault frigate, you have a sell opportunity right here. I do think that they're going to go back down by quite a bit. But you can see that one spike is notable here on the Vengeance chart for the last 6 months. So very hard to actually do active trading, I think, for the assault frigates. You're much better off with something like a stealth bomber, possibly a good logistics cruiser. I think those actually make much bigger jumps than the assault frigates from what I've seen so far. So yeah, not a good week, I would say, for trading. There's not that many opportunities. I see a slight opportunity, maybe Manticores are coming close. But other than that, I'm not seeing a lot of opportunities. Let's maybe take a quick look at where the Oneros buy orders are. They're at 139. Yeah, maybe that could be something to invest in. Oneros, the buy orders are already very low. That's slightly an opportunity, but it's very hard week at the moment, I would say, for Tech 2 and some active trading. Next up, the Tech 3 markets, 28 minutes for that one. Let's just get over these pretty quickly. We knew that the tactical destroyers have been making a bit of a move up, like towards 40 million for a new price for them, and a lot of them seem to be finding that price here. 42 million for the Confessor. But let's take a look at supply here. 199, 179, 89, 30, 17, 23, and here are the recent ones: 30, 30, 12, 43. So there's a lot of supply in the tactical destroyers, and they've gone up in price just a little bit. I think that this is actually okay. Here's the Hecate, also moving 45 million for the sellers. But look at that, 304, less than a day old. This is gonna put quite a bit of pressure on the price here. This is probably going to correct back down towards the 40-42 mark that we see with the Confessor. Next up, the Jackdaw chart here, also evolving towards 45 million. But look at the supply here: 31, 34, 28, 20, 43. Really, there's quite a bit of supply for these ships. There's quite some pressure put on any increase in price. And then I'll touch on the Zwiebel here as well. moved up to 44, and it's pretty much staying there. And then despite that, you're still seeing 18, 13, 44 of them coming, and even here we still have 87 and 26 of them on the market. So all of them moved to, I would say, if you have a general price range 40 to 45 million, all of them did go back up there. So I think that the fact that we're now talking 8 Tech 3 ships rather than 4 is having its impact on the oversupply, which was just enormous before the tactical destroyers came out. And now I guess that there's a little bit more room, a little bit more margin to find some profits in the Tech 3 market, which I think is actually good news. I think the Tech 3 destroyers have been a very good idea and very successful ship, both in their use, in their production and losses, industrial potential, and now it's coming into its own, possibly to make a little bit of money on producing these ships. So yeah, the tactical destroyers, I actually think that they were an extremely good new ship to add, a new ship class to add to the game. They brought a lot to it. It's a very much an alive new part of the market. Compare that to like the Mordus ships. They are much more niche. They're very expensive, very hard to make. So I think I definitely like the tactical destroyers. Let's take a look at the cruisers then. Here is the Legion. You can see that pressure on the price dropped below 140 though. So here I guess people came in and bought quite a few Legions at 140 up to 150. So this is why the price spike is up, but despite that, you can see that there's still pretty big numbers of Legions that are just on the market from oversupply that was in the weeks before this. And now we'll see by next week, I think we'll actually see more supply coming in. That pressure will be right back on the Legion. But people, I guess, bought out between 140 and 150, causing that price spike here. Next up, the Loki here. Very similar, went below 140, which is pretty damn low, and then now moved back up to 150. Let's see if the supply has already responded. It's starting. You can see right here we've got 157, 174, all of them competing, all of them other people trying to sell those Lokis at 153 million, close to that, because they could after that price spike. So this is going to stop 153. This is going to stop right now. This is going to go back down, and people are just bringing too many Lokis to the market for it to absorb and for this increase in price to have any legs. Next up, the Proteus here, just settling at 145. I guess it just didn't go low enough for someone to make a big move on that. Yeah, 149 for the sellers, 142 for the buyers, and then we can still see that despite, well, it's not as outspoken. So as I've said, the fact that there are 8 Tech 3 ships now means that there is more potential and industrial activity going to other ships. We used to see much bigger problems with the oversupply here. It's still slightly here, 3258. I guess the market wants the Proteus to go a little bit lower so that they can buy them for maybe closer to 140 or something like that on the chart. But I think it's still slightly there, that oversupply. And then in the Tengu, we can clearly see that we had a big spike up to 170. Let's take a look at some of the ship numbers here then. Yeah, look at that, the entire front page full of Tengus. The one difference is, if we had seen this like 2-3 months ago or 6 months ago, you would have seen numbers of 20, 30, 40 Tengus coming here. Now you're seeing numbers between 1 and 10. So it has died down a little bit, but in general there is still more industrial potential than actual use of Tech 3 ships in the game. So all of this is actually new supply, and you can see all of this is actually still pretty recent, and here you can just see how many Tengus are still on the market. Yeah, people just tried to sell at this sell opportunity right here, but that's being crushed already by the huge supply, the huge industrial potential that exists for Tech 3 in the game. It's not as bad as it used to. I mean, Tech 3 cruisers used to go for like 120 at their very low points. But that's because of the tactical destroyers, and so all of them have found a slightly higher normal price. I'd say 40 to 45 million for the destroyers. If you go below 40 million, it's probably a good a point where big players will actually buy a whole fleet of them, and with the cruisers probably 140 to 150, something like that. And then finally the extra materials, 34.25 for this week. I actually have a few suggestions, so let's check those out. First of all, we had Macarial and a Vindicator, so a faction ship and then the Vindicator. All right, let's start. Just I'll do a search for them. Macarial should be something like this. Let's take a look at that. Well, I'd say this is not a chart that is cause for any panic or any big moves right here. Started 6 months ago at 480, ending at 460. It did go up substantially, up to 600 million for a Macarial for a while. I guess because you could sell them for that much, people really went in on the LP to create them, crushing the market a little bit, you know, just oversupplying them. This is a much slower market than something like industry, because I guess you have to do LP grinding and then you have to produce the ships, you have to move them. So I guess that this is just a bit of a slower market, but it's pretty obvious that they went a bit overboard with the oversupply after reaching 600 million. They went as low as 420, and now the market is trying to normalize again at maybe 450, something like that on average for a Macarial. But I would say that this is actually a pretty slow market. You really need to time your way. If I would be active in something like these faction ships, I would say I would just save up a lot of my LP and then wait for the right opportunity to actually make a few Macarials and then bring them to the market. But I don't think that this would be the time, considering the rest of the chart, because we're actually on our way back down towards like 440 or something like that. The next one was Vindicator. So Vindicator, here it is. Again, another faction ship right here. What do we see here? We started at 640, we end at 580. 40 million difference, less than 10%. Is that right? 40 million? No, it's actually 60 million difference, slightly less than 10% on the starting price, slightly more. So around 10% decrease over 6 months. Nothing that drastic either. I mean, it went up in price here and managed to maintain itself at 740 for quite a bit. But I guess that people again made a move on loyalty points, and then this slow decline down to a very low point at 560 is what happened. And now I guess Vindicators, well, there might just be a little bit too many on the market, or it might just not be that popular at the moment. And so yeah, down. Another possibility, this could be pretty skill point intensive to actually use them, and so slightly decrease in activity, causing decrease in demand in these faction battleships. That's a possibility as well. Both of them, just in general, seem to be at a pretty low point for the markets, for the Vindicator and for the Macarial. And then the third one was the Gecko, which is one that is being discussed very often, and with good reason. I mean, it used to be 50 million 6 months ago, and now they are going for more than 100 million, 130 million for a Gecko in JITA for the sellers, 115 for the buyers. The reason is there are no more geckos coming to the market, or at least as far as we know, or coming to the game just in general, and every gecko lost is just one fewer in the game, and the value of what are actually the best heavy attack drones out there just keeps increasing. So yeah, those would have been a very good investment once they came out. Oh my god, you could have doubled, almost tripled your money, I think, on those. If I go for the 1 year chart, yeah, they used to be 30 million. You could have quadrupled your money if you had bought a lot of geckos right at the start. So these limited edition goods are always very interesting, but also very risky, of course. Like what we saw with the implants, that used to be worth quite a lot, and all of a sudden CCP gave them out to everyone as a gift, and they dropped in value. They lost all of their value. Billions were wiped off. Here with the gecko, it's just, there's huge potential, there's also huge risk. If CCP all of a sudden says, all right, next Christmas gift, everyone gets 10 geckos, well, then this value is gonna just plummet, absolutely plummet, and you want to be able to sell on time for this. But for now, yeah, the geckos, they would have been a very good investment to buy when they came out for the first time. There's still decent supply of them, so the market is definitely alive, but the uptrend is just unstoppable because it is a good that is not produced in the game. It's actually a limited edition good, and every gig, they're actually used as well because they're pretty much the best heavy attack drone out there. And so this is just what happens with these limited edition goods. Maybe I'll quickly compare that. So a gecko is equal, slightly better, I would say, than 2 Ogre 2s. So let's go for combat drones, heavy attack drones. Let's grab Ogre 2 here. Those cost 1.4 million. So you can clearly see that this has to do with the fact that you can't produce geckos in the game because you're paying 130 million for one at the moment. Anyways, that's it for this EVE Talk then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.